think up until a few months ago, I'd never heard of Extinction Rebellion. Who founded it? Who funds it?
So it's mostly funded, it's crowdsourced, basically. So we're funded from a huge host of individual donors who sign up and crowdsource us.
Now, is it true that your protesters, those who are camping out on the streets of London, are actually being paid to do this?
So many of those people who are camping out on the streets of London are there because they've taken 2 weeks off work to come to London because of the severity of the emergency that we face. They recognise the need to be in the capital and to highlight the emergencies.
Well,
the vast majority of people receive no payment whatsoever.
So some people are paid to do that.
Some people are paid living expenses from Extinction Rebellion because they are committed full-time to working for Extinction Rebellion. And interestingly, in terms of enabling a whole swathe of society to come and work for us, we're not saying you have to do this for free. We're saying wherever you come from within society, whether you're privileged, whether you're working class, if you're committed to Extinction Rebellion, you can come and work for us and we will cover your costs so you can do it. You do not have to be privileged to volunteer for us.
Do you understand the argument? I mean, if I was a London taxi driver, right, I would say to you, there are people being paid to sit in the street to stop me earning a living. Do you understand how upset some people in central London are by your behaviour?
Yes, of course. And the whole philosophy of Extinction Rebellion is to disrupt. That's what we set out to do. There's no easy way of saying that. And every time I say that, I sit in studios and I say to somebody, I am setting out to disrupt your everyday life. I feel very, very uncomfortable about it. And it's accepting that it's been the lack of action for over 30 years from our governments that has meant that we have had to take this action to raise these issues. Now, if we stand on the streets and hand out leaflets, nobody takes any notice of us. The politicians don't take any notice of us. And interestingly, Nigel, the only reason I'm on this programme today is because we've camped out on the streets of London for the last week.
No, to some extent that's true. But if you really want to move this on, look, I am somebody who 26 or 7 years ago, I took the view that our relationship with the European Union was heading in the wrong direction. I wanted to do something about it. I found at the time there were no more than a couple of dozen people in Westminster who were even interested, frankly, in the issue. And so I had a point of view that was very, very, very polar opposite to where political debate in Britain was. And so what did I do? Well, I went out and campaigned around the country, helped form political parties, gained elected representation, and managed to succeed. I don't think I've ever broken the law in doing what I'm doing. So isn't the real argument here that we are a peaceful, democratic society and that what you've brought to London is frankly anarchy in the last week?
So that's a really good question. And the idea that we can address the ecological emergency via our democratic system has been one that has been taken forward over the last 30 years. We've tried very, very hard, like through the Green Party, through motions, through campaigning, through marching. We've tried very, very hard to do that, to raise it up the agenda. And to be honest, we haven't done it as well as you raised the issue of our relationship with Europe.
Maybe your problem is that you're making claims that are frankly hysterical. I mean, your website, hang on. Your website says that there is the possibility of billions dying. That is just not credible, is it?
So I'm sat in an LBC studio here and I'm watching BBC News on the screens, and I'm watching pictures of houses being washed away in Japan because they've just had the worst typhoon in 60 years to hit Japan. So our weather, today, right now, is becoming more extreme. Millions of people no longer have electricity in California because they... Can you let me answer the question? Thank you very much. They've had their electricity turned off because of wildfires. At the moment, we are heading for a 4-degree increase in temperature. Okay, by 2100, that's 4 degrees. The weather we've grown up with no longer exists. At 4 degrees, scientists from the Potsdam Institute have said, I cannot see how the Earth can support 1 billion, let alone 500 million people. That is billions of people dying. The risk is there. We are running
weather
that
story,
risk.
Sarah, I'm sorry, but this extreme weather story is utter nonsense.
No, it's not,
You
Nigel.
know, even the UN's IPCC, even they who have been set up to actually prove that global warming happens, I mean, even they say they have very low confidence in the level at which global warming could lead to high risks associated with extreme weather. We have had, if you think back through centuries and millennia, we've had earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, storms. I mean, we've seen elephants walking across the Thames, and yet, a couple of centuries before that, Greenland had little snow on it. We've seen huge changes in climate, huge extreme weather events, and if even the IPCC say that, in fact, extreme weather is not related at the moment to climate change, why do you believe that it is?
So we haven't had huge changes in weather and climate over the last 10,000 years. It's been an incredible, stable period. And our weather is becoming more extreme. The Bahamas, they have just had the strongest hurricane to hit the Bahamas in the Northern Hemisphere ever. It's flattened the Bahamas. Every weather event, every extreme event that we have is preceded by the next most extreme weather event. We've had the hottest year on record, which preceded the last hottest year on record. There's no way that we can get away from the fact that our scientific measurements are telling us we are warming up and our weather is becoming more and more extreme.
Climate change. Of course I agree with climate change. It's a constant thing. The climate is always changing. But your obsession in Extinction Rebellion and the global warming movement is all with carbon dioxide. Okay? A couple of points to make on that. The first one is, what is it you actually want? Bear in mind, of course, that in terms of CO2 emissions, this country is between 1% and 2% of the world. We are very, very small in this game. Indeed. What is it you actually want the government to do? Would people be able to go to Marbella on their holidays? Would they be able to own, a 4x4 motor car? What is it you actually think government needs to do? And government here has actually already made a commitment that I think's impossible to keep, of saying that by 2050 we'll be, zero net neutral on carbon. But you want this to happen by 2025. To do that, we would effectively have to close down the whole of British industry, wouldn't we?
We would have to totally refocus British industry. It would be a mobilisation like we did in 1939. Whatever happens...
It's the opposite, isn't it? In 1939, we built factories to produce munitions for war. Presumably...
Actually, we refocused our factories, Nigel, is what we did. We took the infrastructure that was in place and we refocused it towards the war effort. And also what we also did was we rationed what was available and brought the country together. We unified the country and we mobilised to fight a common enemy. Unfortunately, the enemy that we're looking at the moment, we can't see it. But it is there, and that's why we're calling for zero carbon by 2025.
So steel would go,
to defend and protect.
Chemical production would go, refining would go. What would we have left?
So the choices that we're looking at are really, really grim. And that's why Extinction Rebellion is asking for a citizens' assembly. So the people come together to decide how and what the change that is required looks like. Rather than politicians sitting in Westminster and saying to us, you have to do this, you need to do that. We bring together...
How?
We do it in various ways. We already do it for juries, for example, and in the past, juries decided life or death of people. We bring it together using...
Who brings them together?
Okay, there's a number of people who are already running citizens' assemblies. There's external bodies. You ask a body of people to set up the citizens' assembly. You bring together people from across the United Kingdom, so it represents people in terms of their age, in terms of their social status, in terms of their wealth. You get a cross-section of people. You explain to them, you educate, and then you ask their opinion of how we move forward. It's what the Irish did with regard to the abortion question. which was very controversial.
And then what do? Do you put this to a referendum? Do you?
You implement it through government. You have to keep the structures of the state in place.
An appointed citizens' assembly would tell government what to do.
They would lead and advise government, and it then becomes very difficult for government to say, we are not going to do this because it has been requested by the people, by representatives of the people.
I have to say, I'm very sceptical about that.
Well, Nigel, can I offer an invitation to you? What I would like to do is to offer an invitation to you to come and understand about citizens' assemblies.
I've seen them in
and
Brussels.
how radical they are. And I would also like to invite you to come and meet with some climate scientists and to actually understand the issues around the science and why what we face is so grave, and why we say we are looking at the extinction, not only of the animals around that we love and cherish, but also we face the risk, the possibility of the extinction of human beings.
Yeah,
we are on the endangered list.
I don't think I haven't spoken to scientists on both sides of this argument over the years I have. One final point.
So is that a yes or a no, Nigel? Will you come and meet with us?
I'm very happy to sit with scientists representing both sides of the argument and have a proper debate, absolutely. But it needs to be a proper debate, and that's really, really important. You know, when I heard Tony Blair say a few years ago on this issue that the science was settled, I thought that is ridiculous. No science is ever settled. Science is always something that is open to debate and amendment going forwards. I want to ask you one question.
Yeah, but I didn't understand if it was a yes or a no to meet.
If I can come and meet people on both sides of the argument and objectively listen to what both have to say, yes.
I'm not sure there's many scientists on the other side of the argument.
There are plenty. I promise you. There are plenty.
So that's a yes, that you'll come and
if they're
meet.
Both. But why is it? See, we had a caller this week. I was debating this in the week. I had a caller ring in from Broadstairs in Kent, and he was in charge of the local beach cleaning charity. And, you know, they go out and clear up plastics and cigarette butts and all the rest of it off our beaches, something which I support and I'm sure you would support as well. He said, it's really interesting. I put big appeals out in the local newspapers and through the internet for volunteers to come along and help do beach cleaning. He said, nobody under 50 ever turns up. And I do wonder about this. If CO2 is what you're worried about, and clearly it is, that is, you know, the theory is it's CO2 increase that is leading to a warming of the climate. The one real antidote for that, as I understand it, are that trees absorb lots of carbon dioxide. Why don't you guys, rather than just protesting, blocking up the streets in London, why don't you guys become part of a national campaign to reforest the United Kingdom? You know, we've really got only about a quarter of the woodland and forestry that we had just going back a few centuries. You get two benefits from that. Number one, a lot more CO2 would be absorbed. Number two, if we plant the right trees in the right places, in terms of, you know, our general biodiversity, we'd be in a great place. I don't see. Here's my problem. I see your campaign as being negative. Where are the positives?
So once you get into providing solutions, you then start arguing about solutions. And when Extinction Rebellion started, the idea and the severity of the climate of the emergencies that we face was not even on the agenda. The truth of the risk we are facing, that our children are facing, still is not being told. And so Extinction Rebellion's main aim is to tell the truth, to request zero carbon by 2025, because that is what is needed to give us a chance of avoiding catastrophic and runaway heating of our planet, and to use democracy via the Citizens' Assembly, upgrade democracy to find the solution to it. If we ask people, if we say, we're facing an emergency and what I want you to do is go out and plant a few trees, it doesn't really feel like what we're asking you to do is commensurate with the risk that we are saying you are facing.
Would a global reforestation plan solve the problem?
It would not solve the problem, but using our
it would help.
Using plants, using trees, using sequestration through agriculture is absolutely one of the things that we need to do and that we need to get started on. And I would imagine that would be something that a Citizens' Assembly would.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, of all the things you've said, the Citizens' Assembly frightens me the most because I worry who'd be on it. But hey, I tell you what, we've had a good conversation here about Extinction Rebellion. I hope you've all learnt a bit more about who they are, what they believe. What do you think? Do you think this is hysterical and over the top and very, very potentially undemocratic, or do you think it's vital and it's important work?